and you feel the fresh air on your skin, knowing that you've got your life back. Seeing friends for the first time, going to work, even a simple 5-minute walk to your local shops becomes the most precious gift. Thousands of chronically ill people are being told every single year that there is nothing that can be done, that they have to spend their lives on medication, even housebound and on benefits with no hope for a bright future. But this isn't always true, and I know because I was one of them. In August 2016, after 2 years of chronic stress, declining health and burnout, I was diagnosed with a lifelong condition, supposedly lifelong condition, called Hashimoto's disease. My specialist at the time told me that I would have to take thyroxine for life, most likely, and he said to me, there is no cure for this condition. When I left the hospital, I phoned my mum and I burst into tears. This wasn't what my life was supposed to be. I had always been driven, ambitious and passionate about what I did. I was full of zest, full of oomph. But over the last 2 years, I had slowly seen this part of me fade away. I was no longer the life and soul of the party. In fact, social events used to fill me with dread. I had so much brain fog and fatigue that I never knew whether I'd make it to the end without crashing. I became introverted and my life became increasingly limited. My time at work was spent battling sick days. All I really wanted to do was go in and do my job well. I was used to being that high achiever that got shit done. I wanted to build my career. But every day became a struggle, living with this invisible illness that just seemed determined to get in the way of any kind of a normal life. Previously, I'd considered going into fitness modelling because I was always down the gym. But now it felt like all of my strength had been siphoned out of me, and what was left was this frail young girl who was so much older than her time. People twice my age, maybe even 3 times my age, would overtake me in the street, because every time I left my house, it felt like I had a ball and chain around my ankles. By the time I received my diagnosis, I was near on housebound and I'd been signed off work for a month. Every day I was battling symptoms, paresthesia, insomnia, dizziness, brain fog, fatigue, and I was seeing less and less of my friends. By this point, I had decided that I would have to hand my notes in at work and give up on my career and any chance of a normal life. At this point, I had spent thousands of pounds on my health and I had tried what felt like everything. Acupuncture, kinesiology, naturopathy, medical herbalism, you name it, I had done it. Every diet you could imagine, GAPS, paleo, bone broth, autoimmune protocol, all of them. I was taking every supplement under the sun, and I'd been meditating every day for last year. So in a final bid to get my health back, I decided to do this thing called the lightning process. A friend had been telling me to do it for quite some time now, but I had refused up until that point. It's not for me, I said. It's not going to help me, I'm different to all of those people. But now, things were different. I had been given what felt like a life sentence, and I was desperate. On the 27th of September 2016, I started day 1 of the lightning process. And this was me on day 3. So this was me burning away all of my old medical records and anything that even remotely resembled my old life. Because I knew at that moment that things had changed, and I knew the old me was back. 3 weeks after doing the lightning process, I had my first period after 2 years. I continued my journey of health, and in my career I worked my way up whilst training to become a health and performance coach. By September 2018, I had moved into a role as a direct marketing manager for a national charity in London. I was working full-time whilst running my therapy practice and also studying to become a lightning process practitioner. I commuted every morning at 6 a.m. and would prepare for my exams on the train on the way into London and on the way back. Never in a million years would I have been able to do any of this with the way that my health was. The lightning process gave me my health back and it gave me my life. So what happened? How did I go from ill to well so quickly after fighting this thing for so long? And how did I go from having a lifelong incurable illness to being healthy and well again? Every single day now, I see examples of people with seemingly incurable issues going from struggle and stuckness to flourishment. And what's interesting is that it doesn't seem to be restricted to a particular issue. The lightning process has seen over 23,000 people since its inception. And whether it's anxiety and depression, burnout, chronic illness, autoimmune conditions, it's seen amazing results across the board. It's most well known for its work with ME and chronic fatigue, but it's seen a lot of results with lots of different issues. And the answer all comes back to our neurology. So one of the key kind of principles of the lightning process stems from the area of psychoneuroimmunology. And that is basically how our psychology influences our neurology, which influences our immune system and our physiology. So the basic premise is that with every single thought that we think, we are triggering the release of a very specific set of chemicals in the form of neurotransmitters and hormones. So just for a moment, it's not very nice, I won't take you too far into it, just for a moment, think of a really shitty experience that's happened in your life. So it could be something like an argument with a friend or something quite pivotal, or it could be, for me, I had a terrible night on Sambuca once, and even just saying the word Sambuca, I've got that gag reflex, it's lovely. So just think about something briefly for you that may bring that sense back, and just notice how that feels, but don't go too far into it. Now what I want you to do is to think about someone that you love deeply. So really think about that person. Think about the way they look at you, the way they make you feel, the things that they say, the things that they do to make you laugh. Just really think about that and notice that. Chances are you're feeling all warm and glowing on the inside. It's very nice. But the thing is, by recalling that memory with your thoughts, you are stepping into the neurology that is triggering that very chemical release associated with that event. So just think about this for a moment. We have at least 60,000 thoughts every day, at least. If every single thought that we think is triggering a very physical chemical release and has a physical impact on the body, what percentage of the time are you guys thinking positive things? About the lovely dinner that you had with a friend, or the smile that you got from someone in the street, even the conversation with the cashier at the supermarket. What percentage of the time are you thinking about those things compared to the really stressful day that you've had at work, or that person who just seems determined to push your buttons? Most people will say it's less than 30%. Now, in the case of burnout and chronic health issues, I imagine most of you may be familiar with the fight or flight response, which is the stress response. And when you find yourself traipsing from therapy to therapy, trying to solve these issues that you are seemingly stuck with, you will find yourself revisiting the illness neurology time and time again. Going back to the origins of the illness, why you think it happened in the first place, how your symptoms are feeling week on week. And in the case of burnout in the workplace, I can guarantee some of the conversations around that will be around just how stressed you are, how busy work is, how overwhelmed you feel, how exhausted you feel. But what are we doing when we revisit those stories? Language has power. And every single time, no matter how true it is, every time we revisit those stories, we are stepping into that neurology. And with neuroplasticity, we are training the brain to look for more of it. Now, whether it's anxiety or depression, chronic pain, autoimmune illness, whatever it is, burnout, the majority of the time, maybe controversial here, but the majority of the time, we don't need to know what triggered it. We all know that trauma and chronic stress has a profound impact on the body. But the common denominator that we come back to time and time again is our neurology, and that is the thing that we need to change. The reason the lightning process was developed was because Phil Parker, the guy who designed it, he was already working as an osteopath and therapist at the time, and he was working with all of these issues. And what he noticed was that whilst some people with seemingly the same issues were recovering from their illness, there were others who were staying stuck with it. So what he wanted to know was, what are the similarities and differences between these two groups of people? And so he started to identify the ingredients, if you like, that were fueling the fight or flight response and keeping those symptoms alive. And this is what we call the illness process. Now, the amazing thing about the lightning process is that because of this, you almost come away with a kind of antidote, a tool that enables you to disrupt that formula. But you obviously need awareness as well. So when I look back on my journey of the lightning process, there were so many things that I discovered about myself and about how the burnout had escalated into this chronic illness. And whilst it's impossible to name them all, there are four key learnings that really stand out for me. The first one was truly understanding and experiencing this thing we call self-love. Anyone heard of self-love? It's a term that's bandied around a lot. And what I find is that whilst theoretically we all know how important self-love is, there aren't many of us who really know how to access it. Now, to this day, I'm still not a massive fan of the words self-love, which may show there's more to be done on my side. But what's been even more powerful for me has been learning how to become my own best friend. About stepping into this person and saying, do you know what, you're a good person, Lauren. Just like I would my own best friend, connecting with that. That to me is self-love. The second learning, and probably one of the most profound learnings for me personally, has been the importance of self-trust. There are so many facets to self-trust. Trusting yourself to make the right decision. Trusting that you are of value. Trusting that we have absolutely everything we need right here, no matter what life throws at us. But just as importantly, for someone living with chronic health issues and burnout, is the ability to trust our own bodies. To trust that our bodies are working for us rather than against us. When you can consciously start to cultivate this, everything changes. It's almost like you're stepping out of the way and letting your body just do its job naturally. Now, my third learning, maybe a shock to you, it's okay to be imperfect. Did you know that? What a revelation. What would life be like if we all came from that place? Perfectionism has a lot to answer for when it comes to the issues that we see in our lives, particularly in chronic health issues. But the thing is, if you're coming from a place where you are constantly discounting your efforts and your achievements, you will never be happy, and you will always be waging a war on yourself. So if we can start to learn to embrace our mistakes and celebrate our achievements, it goes a long, long way in getting us the health, the happiness, and the productivity that we really want. Now, the last learning, and by no means least, is that no matter what happens in our lives, we always have a choice. But so often, and I've certainly been there myself, people will put their power into the world around them. So just think about this for a moment. That person who keeps pushing your buttons, the traumatic childhood you may have had, the burnout that you went through, the job that's running you into the ground, the relationship breakdown that happened, are you going to make all of those things responsible for the struggle that you're going through? Or are you going to realise it is only you continuing that response? Oh, I forgot about this bit. So one of my favourite quotes from Lisa Nichols: "Your story is not meant to be your fortress, it is meant to be your fuel." Because the thing is, shit happens in life, obviously, but we all have a choice about how we respond to that. And the question is, are we going to allow our stories to hold us back, or are we going to use them in a way that propels us forwards? Now, one of my final parting messages before I go is, if you or anyone you know is living with chronic illness or burnout, or anything else, the first thing to recognise is that no one is flawed or broken. We all work perfectly well to achieve what we do. Everything that we produce, everything, is the result of an internal process that we are running. And whilst we might not like those results, it shows that we have really strong neurology that can be used to our advantage when we know how. And the other thing is that chronic health really is just good training. Ultimately, vital bodily functions have been trained to underperform, and if they can be trained in that way, they can be trained in a whole other way when we know how. When I discovered that I could get my health back, I couldn't accept that there are thousands upon thousands of people being told every single year that there is nothing that can be done. My practitioner had ME for 40 years before she discovered the lightning process. She got her life back on track at the age of 60. This girl here, she was pretty much on death's door when she did the lightning process. She couldn't walk, she could barely talk, and she was being fed through tubes. This is her now. She's happily married, working as a nurse, doing all of the things that she loves. Now, these are not isolated cases. There are so many people out there feeling imprisoned by their illness, believing that there is nothing that can be done, but the reality is that there is hope. Passion does not have to cost us our health, and chronic illness does not always have to be lifelong. My life mantra: you absolutely can be the success you want to see in the world whilst thriving in your health. You just need to know how. Thank you.